Good evening. And here we go. This might be kind of short. I'm not sure yet because when I left the house, I looked at my phone and I've only got 12% on the charge. So I'm not sure I'll make it. If I don't, probably what I'll do is when I get home, I'll put the phone on the charger and just do it over again at home, sitting in the old easy chair. So let's get started. 3 things I want to talk about tonight. Number one, Trump had another one of his press conferences today. I wanted to comment on that, but I think what I'd prefer to do is when I get home, I'll get my computer out and see if I can download a transcript of it. I watched probably a half hour of it on television today, and there's just so much. It's just this incredible stream of consciousness. He goes on. I mean, I don't know how he breathes. He just it's like, I've never seen anything like it. It's like he throws a switch on and it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. It's pretty much the same old thing, the grievance story. But one thing that I noticed in the half hour that I watched is I think I see a strategy that is beginning to emerge. Because during the half hour that I watched, he is beginning to paint Kamala Harris as really the president in this last term. That Joe was just a shadow of a figure, and she was actually the one that was in charge. And she's responsible for all of the negative things about the last administration. So this is his strategy now. He's basically transferring because Biden is no longer the candidate. So he just says, okay, no worries. What I'll do is I'll just insinuate that it wasn't Biden in charge. It was her all the time. She's in charge. She's the one that created this thing at the border. She's the one responsible for all of the inflation, etc. So I think this is the tact that they've decided to follow because, they had planned it was going to be Biden and all their attacks were directed at him. So this is a pretty convenient way to do it. And it reminds me of a bet that I had with one of my martial arts instructors. I won't say his name because that'd be kind of rude, but in 2020, after Biden-Harris won, he told me, he says, this is all a conspiracy, and within 2 years, Kamala Harris is going to be president. Joe Biden will be gone. And I said, really? I said, you wouldn't like to make a little wager on that now, would you? Sure. So I basically bet him lunch. I said, no way in 2 years will Biden be gone unless he dies. And if he dies, I'll say that you won the bet too. That will count. Okay. So 2 years to the day, I call him up. I said, guess what today is? He says, I don't know. What is it? I said, it's 2 years since Biden became president. Remember our bet? No. What was that? So I had to refresh his memory. I said, you owe me breakfast. Biden's still president. So now I'm thinking I should call him again and fess up to him and say, you were right. Just took a little bit longer than what you said. It's 3.5 years. So she's actually the president right now. So this is going to be their strategy. We'll see how well that works out. Now, I did see a little thing on YouTube this morning. It was probably maybe 20, 25 minutes long. And what it was Kamala Harris and Tim Walz sitting down at a table, just the two of them. And I think they may have been in the Naval Observatory. That's the vice president's residence. And I got a feeling they were in there because I saw a little telescope by the window. And it looked like, there's a lot of walnut on the walls. It looked like a rich old building. So they're sitting at this nice table and they're just talking to each other. And they're kind of talking about, their past and what their plans are. And it was just kind of nice to see two people just chatting together, having a cup of coffee and kind of getting to know each other and just seeing how well they work together. The chemistry was just really good. Of course, they're very positive, and I think they're going to be a good team. So there was that, and then The other thing, there's actually two other things I want to talk to you about. And I'm not going to be able to say much about Trump's press conference until I hopefully can download a PDF on everything that he said, and I can kind of dissect it, take it apart. Well, there was one thing that I'll touch on. He's talking about illegal immigration. And he made the claim that 20 million illegal immigrants have come into the country since Kamala Harris has been in charge, which would be 42 months. It's about 3.5 years. And so I did a quick little math on that. If you take 42 months and you divide that into 20 million people, that turns out to be just under 600,000 people a month coming into the country. That's what he's claiming. And actually, he'll say something, 20 million, well, that number probably, that seems a little bit low. Some people say it's a lot higher than that. I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. And then there's all the people that got away and that never got counted. I mean, it's incredible. So 600,000 people a month. I know they had 1 month, I think it was December, where they had something like 300,000. Now, this was put out by the Border Patrol. So I think that was probably pretty accurate. That's the highest number that they've ever put out. And that's well below 600,000 people per month for 3.5 years. 20 million to go with the already, how many million are here? Who are you going to believe on that? If you're going to believe Trump, I mean, one day he says it's 15 million are already here. Then he says it's 30 million. And then one day I heard him, he says, oh, it's 50, 60, or 70 million people. That'd be 1 in every 5 people in the United States is an illegal immigrant. So there was that. But I mean, the stream of consciousness was just full of stuff like that. But that's for a time later. When I get a chance to look at the transcript, and I'll boil it down, hopefully into about 10 minutes of a dissection of all that nonsense. And so there was 2 other things that I wanted to talk about. One is my son-in-law, and then the other one is my experience with marijuana. I don't know if I'll be able to get it all in one video, but let's start out with my son-in-law. Okay, I just call him my son, so I'll refer to him in this video as my son, because I feel like he's my son. He and my daughter have been married. I think they got married in about 2011. So what's that, about 13 years or so? So anyways, it's got to be 6 or 7 years ago, he started talking to me about, he's had an interest in the martial arts. And of course he knew I was in Kyokushin karate for 20 years. So he was getting my input about it. He said, what do you think I should do? Should I go to karate or should I go to jiu-jitsu? And I said, well, if it was me and I had it to do over, I said, it'd be nice to have both. You want to have a stand-up game and you want to have a game on the ground. Now, when I got into it in 96 in Yucca Valley, there was no jiu-jitsu. Everything was stand-up in those days. The Gracie said, just come to America. And jiu-jitsu was starting to get more recognition, but there were no jiu-jitsu dojos up there, so I didn't have the chance to learn that. But I recommended to him that, he should try to have time for both. It's a good thing. So eventually what he did was he joined a jiu-jitsu studio. And like I said, it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago. And along the way, now he's pushing 50. I don't know if he's 50 yet. His birthday's on January the 1st. He may be 50 on January 1st. So when he joined the dojo, he was like, mid-40s, which is old. Just like me, I joined when I was 50, 51. So he joins when he's in his 40s. And he's plugging along. He's going to this one dojo. And he's there about, I don't know, it's got to be 2 or 3 years. And he's suffered several injuries there. One of them was a torn Achilles that laid him up for months. Had to have an operation on it. And it was just really too brutal of a school. So he looked around, he found another place. He joined that dojo, and he's been there ever since. And so it's about 4 months ago, I think, he told me, I'm up for promotion. I'm going for my brown belt. So everybody starts as a white belt and worked his way through the blue belt and then worked his way through the purple belt. And now he's testing for brown belt, which is really, really high rank. It's a high rank in Kyokushin. Once you get your brown belt, you're considered an assistant teacher, and you're given a lot more leeway, a lot more responsibility, a lot more authority in the dojo when you put that brown sash on. So, I go to his promotion. He's going to a dojo, I think it's like in Costa Mesa, and he gets his brown belt, and it's just really incredible. I got some wonderful photographs of him. So a couple of days ago, he sends me a picture of his belt with 2 stripes on it. And I'm going, wow, in 4 months you got 2 stripes? Because normally, I know in Kyokushin, when you get to brown belt, the stripes are usually at least 6 months apart, and there's 3 stripes. You got to get 3 stripes. Once you get your 3rd stripe, you have to wait a year before you can test for black belt. So he goes to a promotion, and his instructor gives him 2 stripes at one promotion. And he's feeling a little bit guilty about it. He's telling me, he says, man, I feel like, I'm a little bit, it's a little bit too much for my skill level. And I just basically tried to impress upon him that, the instructor is looking at more than just your skill. It's your dedication, your attitude in the dojo. And I mean, he's what we used to call in basketball a gym rat. Because, this dojo, excuse me, opens up like 6 o'clock in the morning or something. And he's over there at 6 o'clock. He's training, and then he'll come back at night for the night class. And of course, excuse me, it's my allergies. Of course, this is how you get good. So it really doesn't surprise me that his instructor has given him 2 stripes at one promotion. And I think he has to get 2 more. I'm not sure exactly how their stripe system works before he can test for black belt. So I just want to say I'm so proud of him, because having been through it in Kyokushin, 50 years old, I go in there, and it took me, excuse me, 7 years for me to get my black belt, which is a little bit long. Generally speaking, you can get a black belt in Kyokushin in about 5 years, but that's a young person, and it just took me longer because I couldn't do everything they wanted me to do as fast as they wanted me to do it. So I said, okay, well, just take your time and we'll grade you that way. So I can appreciate what he's doing, and I personally think that fighting on the ground is actually harder than standing up, because standing up is more instinctual, and I think it's easier to teach stand-up fighting than it is ground fighting, because there's just so much more to do with technique when you're fighting on the ground. So I've got all the admiration and respect in the world for him for what he's achieved. I know he's gonna make his black belt, and that'll be really cool, because I'm pretty sure once he gets his black belt, he can go teach on his own if he wants to, open up his own little dojo, be a private instructor, and it's something that he'll carry with him all his life. And then what's nice is he'll be able to share it with his kids, his daughter and his son. I can see his son doing it. His son is just a little ball of fire. He's only 3 years old, but I can imagine him on the mat when he's about 6. I think that's probably about how old he'll be when he starts. So kudos to my son-in-law. His name's Allie. If you ever get a chance to meet him, he's a terrific guy. So the other thing was I was going to talk about was my involvement with marijuana. It's a part of my history, and of course, one of the reasons I'm doing these walk and talks is I wanted to document, things I did in my life, because I don't know if I'm going to have time to write down an autobiography. So let me tell you how I started, and I don't know if there's going to be enough time left to go into much detail. And if not, then on the next one, I'll tell you more. So I'm probably, I must have been 24-ish. The fabulous Fabian and I had been married for about a year. And I had his friend, and he smoked. Actually, two friends of mine smoked, and one of them was a real close friend, and the other one was a good friend. So he says to me, hey, man, we smoke, and we've been smoking for a long time. If you ever want to get high, I've got some marijuana. You come over to my place, and it'll be safe, and you can do it there, and I'll show you how to do it. So finally, I decided I'm going to do this because kind of an anti-establishment type person. And so I just thought, I'm going to find out for myself if this is as bad as the government says it is. So I go over to his apartment. I sit down. He rolls up a doobie, lights it up, and gives it to me. And I take a couple of puffs off of it. And I sit there, and probably 5 or 10 minutes goes by. And he says, well, do you feel anything? And I said, no, I don't really feel anything different. He said, okay, well, just a minute. And he goes out in the kitchen, and he comes back, and it's probably about 5 minutes or so. And he's got this little shot glass. And in the shot glass is this orange liquid. He says, here, drink this. And I was really reluctant to drink it. I said, wait a minute. His name was Steve. And I said, wait a second, Steve. I don't want to take any chemicals or any hallucinogenics or anything like that. He says, no, man, this is pure. There's no chemicals in this at all. This is a food product. He says, I just got it out of my refrigerator. It doesn't have anything in it. I wouldn't do that to you. Okay. So I take it, I drink it down. And I go, oh my gosh. I said, that is so good. What is that? And he looks at me and he says, carrot juice. I'll tell you what, man, carrot juice never tasted better. I remember when I was a kid, I was probably 12 or so, and my grandparents were all into health food. And every once in a while, they'd take us kids somewhere, like down to the Pike or some amusement park. And I remember one time they took us down there. There was this stand that had, health food type stuff. And they got us some kind of drinks and stuff. And us kids are going, oh, God, that's awful, And so to drink carrot juice, if my grandma and grandfather could see me with a big smile on my face, they'd say, see, we tried to tell you. So that was my first experience. And then after I drank that down, he says, okay, well, if you, here's a little something you can take home with you and get you started. And if you want some, I can get it for you. So I go out and I get in my car. So a VW Bug, 64 Volkswagen Bug. And I get on the freeway, the Newport Freeway. Back in those days, there was only 2 lanes on each side. Just built it, right? So I'm driving down the freeway. I'm heading back to our apartment in Fullerton. I got the radio on. And the Volkswagen's got this little bitty speaker. It's probably like a 3 or 4 inch speaker, just one, right? And that song, I can't remember the name of it, but it's 73 men sailed off from the San Francisco shore. And that poured out of that speaker like honey. And I could hear every note. I could hear the guy's fingers sliding on the guitar. Every instrument individually, I'm just like, I'd never, ever heard music like that. I was just totally blown away. So that was my first experience with weed. And I went on to smoke it for probably another maybe 2 to 3 years at the most, just recreationally. I'll give you more details on that later, but I'm going to give you a quick explanation of why I stopped. Like I say, I must have been 26 or 27 years old. We had, moved to Northern California. We had that restaurant up there for a while. Then eventually we moved back to Joshua Tree, California, and that's where I stopped smoking. And what happened was, I didn't know it at the time, and I found this out many, many years later, that I have a heart condition called bradycardia. And what that is a very slow heartbeat, slow resting heartbeat. The normal heart rate is between 60 to 100. And my heart rate is generally in the mid 50s when I'm resting. And so, after many, many years, I had a cardiologist. I went to a cardiologist because I was having PVCs. And so they did a lot of tests on me. And they said, oh, you have bradycardia. I'd never heard of it before. Because, when I was younger, I never went to the doctor. I had no money and I was healthy as a horse. So I never went and I never paid any attention to my pulse or anything like that. So yeah, they said, you got bradycardia and don't worry about it. Your heart's fine. Your heart rate is fine. As long as you don't feel dizzy, as long as your vision isn't blurred or anything like that, you're fine. Just forget about it. So back in those days, I didn't know that I had a slow heart rate. So when I smoked the marijuana, after a while, what had happened is my hands and my feet would get really cold. And I'm talking about like on a normal day when it's like 70, 75 degrees outside. It just got flat uncomfortable. And so finally, I had to give it up because it just wasn't fun anymore because of this side effect that developed over a period of time because marijuana is a depressant and it just slowed my heart rate down to the point where my circulation was just not as strong. And I was young. I was like 26 or so. But that's really why I stopped. And then, of course, my kids started to come along. I think I was, I was 29 when Shannon was born. And I pretty much decided that I didn't want to do any drugs in front of my kids like that. So that was that part of the story. I'll give you the rest about my other experiences with marijuana. But I think that's going to do it for tonight. We're 21 minutes in already. Wow. Okay. And it's starting to get dark, so I got to get going back. I got kind of a late start. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll get a chance to go over Trump's speech and tomorrow night. I may have to do it from the house. I may have to have notes because there's so much. I mean, he's like a freaking fire hose. All right. So thanks for tuning in. Good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.